Hi, and welcome back to Narwhal News, our weekly video series / podcast where we cover FRC updates, competition predictions, and robot and match analysis in all under 20 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. We're Team 3128, the Aluminum Narwhals, an FRC team from San Diego, California. With Week 1 events just around the corner, we have so much exciting content for you today. With that, let's take a deeper look. And now I'm here with Vin, one of our e-scouting experts, to talk about e-scouting and the role of e-scouting at competition. Hey Vin.
Hey Bryn.
So can you explain what e-scouting is specifically for our viewers?
Right, so on our team, e-scouting is a small sub-team from strategy. Our main job is to create and compile scouting applications for our team's use in different competitions.
With Week 1 events just around the corner, can you go a little more in depth into what our team scouting system looks like?
Right, so for our team, our scouting systems consist of 3 main web apps: Osprey, which we use for collecting data, Mercy for uploading data, and then Neptune for the visualization of the data. So Osprey is the apps that our scouts use to collect data at competitions. There are buttons for collecting data points such as coral scoring, the misses, or algae scoring. And then there's text boxes for our scouts to input data, which is qualitative data on different important aspects that we want to keep track of, like auto paths, driver awareness, or like robot speed and cycles. Osprey is coded in JS, HTML, and CSS, which means it's completely offline, which is especially useful at competitions where Wi-Fi isn't readily available. And then moving on to Mercy, which is our data upload app. Data from Osprey is fed into Mercy, where it gets uploaded to Firebase, which is a cloud-hosted database where we store all of our information. And then finally, Neptune is where all our data gets displayed. It's displayed in different charts and different visuals that allows it to be more easily read than just like raw numbers, like in a spreadsheet, for example. One of the most used tabs in Neptune is ranking, which is where all the robots are ranked based on their game statistics. All of the different data points are weighted based on weightings that we decide beforehand, and then robots are sorted based on that. It allows for our team to see like a snapshot of the whole competition and see where all the robots place, which is especially useful for like pick listing, for example. It's coded in Svelte, which is a JS-based web framework. We chose Svelte because it allows Neptune to be more reactive to different changes like new updates. There are several other features in Neptune as well, but ranking is the most used one.
Okay, thank you so much, Vin. And obviously, collecting data is great, but I think the structure of scouting and strategy at competition is really important because without that, it's really hard for the data to actually get used efficiently. Can you talk a little more about our strategy and scouting structure at competitions?
Yeah, so there are 3 main roles that use our scouting systems at comps. There are the scouts, the head scout, and the MDA, or math data analyst. So scouts, as I said before, use Osprey. We generally have like 6 scouts, preferably more so we can have breaks. But each scout is assigned a different robot on the field, and they just watch the robot and get information on it. And then we have the head scout, which is in charge of managing all the scouts. So the head scout basically just makes sure the scouts know which robot they're scouting, making sure they get breaks when they need it. Head scout is also in charge of uploading the data from Osprey to Mercy. Mm-hmm. And then finally we have the MDA, the master data analyst. Their job is to monitor Neptune and see all the different updates that get created. They work with our lead strategist, who is in charge of creating the match strats, getting them the information on the different robots, and making sure they're up to date on all the new information that comes in.
Wow, that sounds like a great organizational structure for scouting alliances. Can you go into some open and free resources for teams who are looking to start a scouting system or scouting alliance?
Right, so for some open ones, we have TBA, the first API data. It's used for every single competition. There's some very useful data points so that teams can avoid redundant scouting, such as like recording the climb or leave data points. And then there's also Statistics. While you can't get actual like data from Statistics, it's good for pick listing and comp analysis because it shows an overview of like how robots perform over time. And then for actual scouting alliances, there's Lovat, made by Team 8033. They use a mobile-based scouting application along with a separate website for their data visualization. It's helpful for pick listing and looking at different teams' information.
Great, thank you so much for joining us today, Vin. Your expert advice was super helpful. See you next time.
See you next time.
I'm here now with another member of our strategy department, Abraham, to go over some of the best robot concepts and designs we've seen as of week 0. Abraham, with week 1's coming just around the corner, I'm so excited to see some of these robots compete. Can you walk us through maybe your top 5?
Yeah. So, from what we've seen in week 0, along with robot reveals and open alliance, I've made a definitive list of like my top 5 personally, and coming in at that number 5 spot from the week 0 that the official week 0 that we've seen is Team 4909 Bionics, who were the second overall pick in the week 0, and they showed off the ability to do L4 very well with their sideways elevator, that instead of putting their intake on the inside of the robot with the elevator on the very outside edge, they put the intake on the outside edge so that they could just dump a piece of coral in horizontally that could roll down instead of having to shove it vertically. Mm-hmm. And that allowed them to get pretty fast intaking because they don't need to line up much. Because instead of using the holes, they just line up with where the robot is and throw a piece horizontally, and that made it very fast to get out of the intake station. And their L4 also looked very nice, pretty much hit every single one of their L4 makes. Don't know if that's automated or not, but it seemed to be very consistent. Haven't showed off the ability to really deep climb yet, so I'm looking forward to see what they do for that. But because of their strong performance at week 0, making that finalist appearance and being that second overall pick, really solidified that top 5 spot for me. And then for the number 4 spot, also going to week 0, I'd like to point out that first overall pick, Team 190, who showed off the amazing ability of that really fast deep climb that took like under 10 seconds pretty much every time, that fast lineup, and very consistent deep climb at that. Some of the robots had the ability to deep climb, but they couldn't show off that consistency that is needed when you're trying to pull off a deep climb every single match for that RP. And along with that, they also had that 3-piece L4 auto that wasn't fully tuned out, but sometimes it worked, and that made a huge difference of like a 20-point swing when they hit it, because 3 pieces times 7 points is a whole 21 points that can really swing the match during Auton and make a lead that a team really just can't come back from. And the ability to do that, plus their really fast intaking from the human player station along with their L4 cycles made it really easy for them to solidify their spot as that top team going into the line selection, and that's why they got picked at that number 1 spot.
Yeah, 190 was definitely very, very strong robot even for a week 0.
Yeah. And going into that, they also had that funnel that could sort of self-center a piece by pushing in on both sides. Mm-hmm. And what's more is that they used that funnel to like pivot out and open up so that they could open up that space for deep climbing as well. So really unique robot, and really looking forward to what they do in the New England districts. And that's why I have them at number 4 with that really consistent 3-piece auto, the very nice deep climb, and the ability to do L1, L2, L3, L4 all together solidifies that spot for me.
Yeah. Are there any other robots you want to feature in your top 5?
Yeah, so going into number 3, instead of going into the week 0 robots, I want to go into Open Alliance. So taking that number 3 spot for me is Team 6328 Mechanical Advantage, with that really nice low CG funnel that really loads their robot, centering the piece into that tilted elevator with that intake that can go up and down and place really nicely on the L4 spot. And we really saw them try to do some auto align cycles and stuff, and in a really fast pace, under 1 second to align and place the piece instantly. Their tilted elevator going up very fast, along with that that algae intake looking very nice for eventually if they want to do like barge or algae removal and stuff like that. Making it very consistent. One thing I do want to see is what they end up doing for deep climb, since they do have that funnel covering up most of the space, plus that tilted elevator on one side and the algae intake. So I want to see like where they end up putting that deep climb, because it's going to be very important for getting those endgame RP.
Yeah, they don't have that much space, and I'm guessing not that much weight either. So I'm excited to see what innovative solution they come up with.
So, and that's why I move on to my number 2 spot, which is Team 4481. They've showed off consistency with their autos, cycling, and very nice deep climb that's been fully tested and stuff. So going into that, they have a 4-piece L4 autonomous that they're still tuning out, but they've already gotten it to work once. Along with that, they have that deep climb that lines up nicely. It looks very similar to 190's deep climb that has a sort of piece that pivots on the bottom to make it to grab on to the bottom of that cage along with the top of it as well, and it seems to be working out very nicely, especially with the robot done so early as well. Along with that, it seems they've improved on their funneling for when they want to intake from the human player station, making their L2, L3, L4 cycles pretty consistent, not really missing too much, especially once they start getting into like auto-align cycles and sort of figuring that stuff out. And with those consistent items, I have them at my number 2 spot. And that brings me into my number 1 spot. I don't think this is a surprise. This is going to be Team 1690 Orbit with their recent Monday reveal of the robot called Whisper, which is a 2.5 DOF elevator with a pivot along with the suction cup, so they can intake ground pieces and align them into an orientation that allows them to use a suction cup and pick up coral from inside the robot and place it on L1, L2, L3, L4, and this makes it very easy for them to get done like high amounts of coral cycles during autonomous, because they don't need to go all the way back to the station. They can just intake from the ground, saving some of that cycle time instead of having to stop at the human player station. And that's why we saw them get done an L4 4-piece L4 auto so early. Along with that, they have that really nice deep climb that is pretty fast and gets the job done. It seems really similar to like Tech Hound's Rust Hound's RI3 deep climb that's worked so well for so many teams. And along with that, having that suction cup means that it can double for picking up algae from the ground or removing it from the reef and placing that barge, especially with such a long arm that pivots from that elevator.
Yeah, I think 1690 just truly an innovative concept for Reefscape. It's not something we've really seen in Open Alliance or in the resources publicly available. Definitely like a robot to watch in their events. Thank you so much for giving us your ranking of your top 5. That was super fun and informative. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. I'm here with a member of our strategy department, Justin, to go over some Week 0 takeaways. Historically, Week 0 has been a time where match strategies and competition trends begin to emerge. Justin, let's take a deep dive into Week 0. Tell me about it.
So first thing I want to highlight is the high score reached in the Week 0 event. So the max score hit was 119 by the Alliance 1 in the official Week 0 competition. And compared to Crescendo last year, the max score is like 80. So the fact that it is 119 kind of shows the sign that Reefscape is going to be a higher scoring game. I think with 2 more weeks of driver practice, auto-tuning, whatever, stuff like that, I think we could see 150 or higher being the max score hit during our Week 1 competitions.
So tell me more about the scoring levels. We have different levels of scoring this year. Could you see any trends in that throughout Week 0?
Well, Week 0 was the first event where we saw robots go for the L4 level, because in the mid-season building competition, there's only really L1 and Cranberry Alarm. We could do L2 and L3. So L4 was the first time we saw it here, and it proved to be a very vital aspect of scoring, because there's no need to remove algae from the reef to score on all rungs of L4, and also it just also is the most points. So robots that can line up and score L4 effectively as their primary source of cycling dominated the event, as we saw from teams like 190. And also, robots who could run L4 autos, they gave a massive advantage for their alliance going to Teleup, which helped shift the balance of the match very early on.
Thanks, Justin. Now, what about Endgame?
So Endgame, we kind of saw how Endgame would play out for the first time in this event, and I think Deep Climb has huge potential to not only be the free barge RP, obviously, but also just the best method of scoring. Because if you can pull it off fast, as we saw from 190, I'm going to highlight them over and over again because they're a really good robot, it is worth more than 2 L4 cycles, and being able to pull it off in maybe around 5 seconds, it evolves from being kind of that free barge RP, and it kind of becomes like the best way to score points in the last 5 seconds of the match. Unlike last year, where we saw lots of teams in playoffs scoring until the very last moment, getting all those amplified shots in. I think Einstein level Reefscape, we will have 3 robots going for the deep climb in the last 10 seconds of the match.
Thanks, Justin. Now, what about the lineup? We've seen that the visibility from the driver's station can sometimes be obscured by the reef. Could you elaborate a little more on that?
Well, I think this year automated lineup will be very important to many teams because, as you said, scoring on the side reefs, you can't really differentiate one rung from the other because they're both kind of lined up against your driver's station. So, being able to line up automatically will definitely be integral to scoring lots of maximizing the reef. But this could also lead to more misses and dropping coral onto the field.
Is there anything else you noticed throughout the match?
I noticed that a lot of game pieces just end up on the floor in general, and that could cause a lot of congestion for teams as they try to score into the reef. There might be a bunch of coral in the way, or if they go to intake from the human player, there might be coral in the way. So being able to adjust to that accordingly is going to be very important in this game. And then one more thing is that algae, it kind of took a backseat for many teams at these events, and they kind of just hard focused on scoring coral. So we had a few robots that would take algae off the reef and score into the net or the processor, but for the most part, Alliance 1, for example, which won the event, they were basically all coral.
Got it, thank you. Now, I wanted to ask a little more about defense. We saw the only one defending robot will be introduced this year. Any important, moments with defense in week 0?
So, I think defense kind of showed its potential once again at this event because the robot can essentially lock down one of the stations and basically deplete an alliance of half of their coral. So we saw some defense being played by 509 in match 3 of playoffs, and when coupled with, I think, 2 high-volume coral scoring robots, I think one defense bot, that kind of trifecta of alliance, they could definitely rip through playoffs.
Yeah, thank you so much for your week 0 takeaways, Justin. Lots of valuable lessons to be learned from week 0. I'm here now with our strategic design lead, Ian, to talk about the regional point system. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
Could you tell us more about the regional point system and its implications?
Yeah, so this year, First for regional teams has implemented a system called the regional point system, replacing the previous system of wild cards. And so at each competition, teams earn points based on their performance during quals, where they're selected for their Elims Alliance, and then their Elims performance, and also awards. And so with all of these points combined, at the end of week 2, and then every week after that, First takes the top X many teams who have earned a certain amount of points and gives them invitations to Worlds. So this new system emphasizes consistency since your total points count as your first 2 events, and so you have to do well at both of those events.
So Ian, how can teams qualify week 2 for championships if they haven't gone to 2 events?
First takes your first event that you've competed in week 1 or 2, multiplies that by 0.6, and then adds 14 points to that. And that kind of functions as your second event during that week 2 count, or up until you've gone to your second event, or all the way through week 6 if you are only going to 1. So.
Could you elaborate more on what the regional point system focuses on compared to just regional wins and the previous qualification system for championships?
Yeah, so it means that awards at regional competitions actually mean something now. Previously, it was great to get an award, but it didn't necessarily mean anything for your team unless it was Rookie All-Star, Impact Award, or Engineering Inspiration. But now all of the awards presented at competitions give you points, and so every team should be trying to go for an award at a competition because it will seriously help your chances of qualifying for a championship.
And this includes technical awards, right?
Yeah, it includes all of the awards.
So Ian, do you think there will be any shift in the trends and type of teams that go to Worlds and how that might possibly impact the outcome of championships?
Yeah, I think teams that are consistently ranking higher will have a much greater chance of advancing towards championships. Since the wild card order is gone, it means that second picks get little to no points based on where they're picked in alliance selection, meaning that they're a lot less likely to end up getting an invite to go to Worlds. So this can either be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your view of it. It likely means that the level of play at Worlds divisions will go up since less teams will be getting there based on a wild card pick, and more teams will be going based off of pure robot performance.
Okay, thank you so much for that input. I'm excited to see how the regional point system decides to work out this year. Thanks for joining us, Ian.
Of course.
Wow, we had so much great content today. As always, if you'd like to give us input on our content or what you'd like to see on our podcast, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down in our Spotify or YouTube for ideas and suggestions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. We're so grateful for your support throughout the Rescape season. We hope to continue to create interesting content for you. Thank you so much. See you next week and keep on swimming.